Okay, everybody, this is section 2.2. We're going to go into two-step equations. So we're going to try to solve equations for variables and use two steps to do this. So we're going to look at PEMDAS. We're going to remember that we did inverse operations from section 1. We're going to have to redo all that to be able to do these problems, okay? Once again, if I'm going too fast in my notes, please make sure that you hit pause, get your notes caught up, and then be able to kind of come back and join us and keep taking your notes. All right. So first thing we want to do is take the definition here to undo two-step equations, use multiple inverse operations, working backwards through the order of operations. Okay. So let's just kind of really review from the other day. Or previous section. We're going to look at when we're adding something, the inverse operation is to be able to subtract. If we're subtracting something, then we should be able to undo it by addition. When we have multiplication, to be able to undo that, we're going to use division. When we have division, we want to be able to undo that with multiplication. Okay, so we did that in our previous section. We want to remember to do that today. You have to identify that through the equation that you have. If we remember too that order of operations is PEMDAS, okay, and to undo PEMDAS or to work, we're going to have to work backwards through that order of operations. So we're going to have to do this. Okay, so SAD MEP. All right, so we're going to have to, the first thing we're going to look for is to do either subtraction or addition, depending on what comes first. And then we're going to look to do division or multiplication, whichever comes first. Okay. We sometimes have to deal with parentheses. Later on in math, you'll have to deal with exponents, but we're not going to go there right now, okay? So in this first example, problem number 1, we're going to go ahead and identify what is the operation that we have. In this particular case, I'm adding, so I have to do the inverse of that, and I'm doing it first. I'm going to start with order of operations, but working backwards. So I want to do the opposite operation or inverse. I'm going to subtract 3. I have to do it to both sides. This will go away. I'm left with 2x, and I get 12. Working with my next step, so the second step of a two-step equation, I'm going to have to undo this. This is multiplication. That 2 and the x are put together by multiplication. To undo that, I will now divide. Okay, and I'll go ahead, these will go away, and I get x left over. 12 divided by 2 gives me 6. Okay, all right. The next one, we're going to identify that this right here is a fraction, but we understand it being a division problem. So that will help us a little bit, but that'll be our second step. The one thing I'm going to look at, the operation here is subtraction. So the inverse of that is to add. All right. So that's going to help this to go away. I'm left with the fraction. And 5 plus 3 gives me 8. Okay, now remember the fraction being a division problem, I'm going to undo that with multiplication. We remember from our previous section that I'm going to multiply both sides by whatever the denominator is. So in this case, it was a 2. So that means these will go away. I'm left with what's at the top. So z, 8 times 2 is 16. Okay. So that's a two-step equations. Being able to identify that we're going to work PEMDAS but backwards, so I have to either add or subtract depending on what I was given. We had an example of each one. So after that, I was able to identify what I had left, and it was either multiplication in this first, number 1, or was it division in number 2. And I do the inverses of those to eventually solve it. Okay. All right. So taking a look at this next problem, I have this, I'm going to create a banner, and I'm given a certain number of pieces of paper to be able to do that, but the banner also, I have certain things I have to make. So they really important when you read these that you kind of, there's going to be a lot of words there that really don't help me to do the math part of it, but they're telling me kind of what I'm doing and what I have. So I like to circle stuff. I have a half a sheet of paper that I'm going to have for each ad. I'm going to use 5 sheets of paper for a title banner, and they gave me 12 sheets of paper to work with, okay? So, and I'm going to do this kind of common sense here, but I'll show you how to write this out. 5 of these pages right here I'm going to use for my banner, okay? The other sheets I'm going to use for my ads, but each of these pages I can get a half an ad, or put an ad on the top, put an ad on the bottom, okay? So that means I've got 7 pieces of paper left. If I put an ad in each one, or each half, I'm sorry, then how many ads do I have? And I think I'm going to get 14, okay? But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write a formula. I'm going to get a half an ad on each page, okay? I use 5 pages for a banner, and all told, I'm going to use 12 pieces of paper, okay? So I've written kind of a number here to represent the ads, the number here to represent the banner. This represents everything. So now I can solve it and kind of see what I'm supposed to get. I'm going to do PEMDAS backwards. So here I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 5 from both sides. I'm going to get 1/2 A equals 7. I'm going to identify that this part right here is a multiplication. That's how 1/2 and A is put together. So I'm going to have to divide by 1/2, but that means I'm going to flip it and multiply. So really that just goes away over here. I get A, and I get 7 times 2 is 14. So I'll be able to get 14 ads out of that. And if you count all these up here at the top, I'm going to get 14 that way. Okay, so sometimes, yeah, it's pretty easy to do that common sense wise, but we want to write equations too. Okay, this last one, just to kind of, hey, once in a while you get something that looks like I'm supposed to do this, but I really can't because of math rules. If we go by these rules that we just did in this problem, to me, I would have to go ahead and I'd have to add 7 to both sides, and then because it's a fraction, I'm going to multiply by 3. But this whole thing is a particular number. I don't know what it is because I don't know what x is. So what I have to really do is kind of I like to get rid of the fraction. This is the way that we need to do it anyway. So remember, to get rid of fractions, we're going to go ahead and multiply by the denominator of both sides. And really, that's just going to help me get that gone. But I'm going to go ahead and get x minus 7. That's what's left on the top. And then negative 12 times 3 is a negative 36. So in this particular problem, because this is called a quantity up here, because I have a quantity in the numerator, I need to undo the fraction first. So this is kind of one of those situations where I can't follow the exact rule that we had before, okay? Then I am going to undo this x minus 7 by adding 7, and I get negative 29 for that particular problem, okay? So there's 2-step equations. It's a building block on what we did the other day. So on the homework, just do a really good job on it. If you got any questions, please ask, and then we can get that fixed together, okay? I think that's the end, so we'll check your homework later, okay?